Honestly, didn't even think about that. That's a really dumb question now that I put into perspective.
I'll be honest, I was a little bit worried coming on this podcast.
A lot of people are.
Well,
yeah, someone that wasn't on the blacklist had to come in and say something positive before she could interact.
Did.
There is a podcast in Iowa, Farm4Profit 'twas named by they. Fate stirred up a banker near, then quick came an auctioneer. Making profit was their first goal, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Soon may the farmers come to bring us guests and beer and fun. One day when the recording's done, we'll take our mics and go. These formats shook us to our core. With Farm4Fun, you will not snore. The banker set all mics to on, and the mullet of podcasts was born. Soon may the farmers come to bring us guests and beer and fun. One day when the recording's done, we'll take our mics and go. Before we knew, conversations grew. Growing corn even said F you. So won't you join Tenor, Dave, Corey, and crew? Please like, share, review. Soon may the farmers come to bring us guests and beer and fun. One day when the recording's done, we'll take our mics and go.
All right, welcome back to a Farm4Fun show of the Farm4Profit podcast. This is Tanner Winterhoff.
This is Corey Hillebo.
And there's the sound of crickets.
Yeah.
Because we are missing our third wheel.
Yeah,
Dave it didn't sound very nice. That's not nice to call Dave the third wheel.
He's probably the first wheel. He's just gone. So we're running on 2 and 3.
We're just trying to balance on the back two. But listeners, tell us what you think of the new intro music. That was Tyler Richton and the High Bank Boys. Let us know. We still got some tweaking to do. This is the very first dropping
Hopefully
of the
you
new
like sea shanties.
Farm4Fun intro music. So let us know if you hate it. If you absolutely hate it, that is just fine. Just let us know. And send us all the rest of your recommendations and rate and review farm4profitllc@gmail.com. We appreciate all reviews, Corey. What's one we got today?
Yeah, we got one from Buck_1970. Love your podcast. I never turn on the TV anymore. Also started following you on TikTok. Thanks, friends.
Yeah, I don't know if we can replace TV. That's a tall order.
I think just generally people are just cutting the cord on TV, so thanks for it, though.
Go out to YouTube. We are recording these in video, so there are going to be clips out there. You can find us on YouTube if you're not exhausted by what we're talking about to you once a week already.
Yep. Did you talk about this is the fun show?
This is fun. That's right. This is our Farm4Fun format. Farm4Profit was the last episode that you see in the queue, with a What's Working in Ag segment, a general topic, and then a challenge for you. This is fun. We're going to kick back and have a conversation with somebody that I've been waiting to talk to for a very long time.
Yeah, this is going to be good. I think we should get into it.
And before we introduce, don't forget to go out to farm4profit.com and check out the offers with BW Fusion and the link to the Travis Burkhardt Foundation charity auction.
Yeah, got some good stuff going there.
All right, enough of that. We're done with announcements, right, Corey?
I think so.
Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Today on the Mullet of Ag podcast, we are getting that spring itch to get back into the field with this nice weather. We have a very, very special guest joining us from the social media and ag world. This woman is a powerhouse and, dare I say, living legend. When she speaks or tweets, everyone stops and listens because it's always mind-stimulating and pure. She made the 2020 year of compounding experiences look like a walk in the park. She is the Director of PR and Social for John Deere, Jen Hartmann.
All right. Woo. All right, Jen, have you had an introduction like that before?
I cannot wait to play that for my husband. I'm just going to have that on repeat at the house.
There you go. Yeah, we tried to go a little over the top. I don't know, something.
We appreciate you taking
crazy.
the time. So we try to make you feel special when you log on.
Oh,
So
you
we
did.
we
Thank
first
you.
started talking about having Jen on. Gosh, it was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, and never thought it would happen.
It was tough last year being asked to do any interviews outside of my job because so much was happening with my job.
Yep.
It's sometimes hard to differentiate. And I think when you first reached out to me, I was just concerned about giving the impression that everything was great and fun and lighthearted when in fact things really weren't, right? I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
so
Well,
I
you
wanted to
sure
make
did
sure
you sure did a great job, because you must be like a duck, calm on the surface and just swimming like crazy underneath. So,
Jen, can you share with our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with you what your job is?
Oh gosh. So I started in my current role on March 1st of 2020, which I swear there's a book in here somewhere, but my predecessor, Ken Golden, was the head of PR for Deere for 21 years. And he retired on February 28th of last year. And I frequently tell people this story. I have been at Deere for just over a dozen years. I have had dreams of being in this position, leading PR for Deere, since I was a college kid. And I had the opportunity to be in different communications roles for Deere. I took on the lead social role a few years ago and reported to Ken before I was announced as, the person who'd take his place. And we sat down on February 28th, and I asked him, hey, Ken, if there happens to be some significant crisis that faces the company sometime down the road, would it be okay if I reached out to you?
yeah.
Did he say yes?
He didn't. He said no. And in looking back, I continue to thank him actually for it. Number one, I think he really genuinely wanted me to stand on my own. And he wanted to make sure that I didn't lean on him in the event there was a crisis. He trusted me to manage it. And I will tell you, when the pandemic really started, coming to reality, and started impacting our business there in mid-March, I was grateful that I didn't have him to lean on, because I very quickly had to just step in and make decisions.
So you're saying he didn't have the crystal ball and knew that all of a sudden the world was going to fall apart and just said no for that reason?
Oh my gosh, right? It was an astute decision on his part to say no, yes, and a blessing for me in the end.
That's so crazy to think. February 28th, last year, you were sitting there and he told you no, and you just asked him a question that you probably weren't even thinking, like the pandemic,
I've been at the company for 12 years at that point, maybe 11 years at that point. And, we have events that happen, right, at factories or units, whether it's a natural disaster or a significant injury. But to face a worldwide pandemic that impacted over 70 units globally, that was beyond anything I don't think any of us could have ever imagined.
Wow. You ought to be set experience-wise for the rest of your career.
Oh gosh, I joke. I joke I've been in this role for a year, but I've had 10 years of experience. And
that's why I said the 2020, the year of compounding experiences. I tweeted back at you.
Yeah,
that day. I was like,
that's true. I one of the great things about it, if I can, and I tend to be someone who does look at everything a little bit perhaps too optimistically, is that it forced me to immediately make connections with people in such meaningful ways. Mm-hmm. Had I just came into the office that first day, I would have been making calls to people. Hey, could I set up some time with you? I'd love to know what you do. I understand you're head of investor relations, or I had understand you're in charge of supply management. Immediately, I was part of a crisis response team that was addressing every facet of the company and the business. And so it really did expose me to a lot of folks in the company, really helped me understand the business very quickly. And so, ultimately, this first year, I think, will make the rest of my time here feel like cake. I hope.
What a thing to put on the resume. Yeah, I managed all Deere social and PR through 2020. Oh, you're hired.
And there weren't any dumpster fires. Yeah, or obvious, at least to us as bystanders here on the outside. I'd compliment you and say I think you did a good job.
Yeah, well, I will tell you that being able to manage Deere's Twitter handle is my mental sanity. I, at night, people will say, hey, now, because we have a social media manager, And what we've really done is just had each of us on the team take a channel. And I just cannot give up Twitter. I personally am addicted to it, but being able to jump on every night or over the weekend is not work to me. And when I have that opportunity at night to jump on, see what the community we've built, and you guys know this from being on there, it's a really tight-knit community.
Oh, yeah.
Ag Twitter is tight-knit, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like the Deere Twitter handle has really built some trust there and a rapport, and, we're able to be more conversational. That's the highlight of my week, is when I'm behind that Deere handle and engaging with folks on.
Which as a company is kind of amazing, like, because we've kind of noticed, you tweet from the Farm for Profit account and you get sometimes, but you tweet personally and you get a ton of traction. So to do it as a company shows how far it has truly come for you guys.
Yeah. The secret is to stop worrying about what you're posting and just engage.
Yep.
And I don't know, a couple of years ago, I kind of started going around to everyone in the company, because in the past, Twitter was kind of treated like all the product lines in the company just submitted the content they wanted to share. And then the social team either approved it or rescheduled it. And I learned really quickly that the greatest value in Twitter is the community you can build.
Yeah.
And why would anyone follow a brand that's just going to advertise to them?
Yep.
None of us would. I wouldn't, right?
Yep.
And so I knew we had an opportunity to start engaging with fans and with customers, right? We've had 24/7 customer support on social for, even before I got on this team. So I think that's been fun to watch.
Well, I think it's fun to watch the Deere account, but one of my favorite accounts is your personal one. And just like Corey said in his introduction, I feel like when you tweet something out, the whole Twitterverse just stops and reads it, takes it in, and applies it. Maybe that's just my personal reaction
I
to
feel
it.
like no, they do. It's just likes and retweets and
but
engagement.
Then the comments below there's almost more value in the comments than the original post, because how thoughtful they've been in analyzing whatever message it was that you put out.
Yeah. It was like December of 2018. 2019. It wasn't until the beginning of 2020. I was starting to help our CEO build a social presence on LinkedIn. And we also had employees in the company that wanted to start building their own personal brand on social. And so I thought, if I'm going to help people do this, I need to figure out what it takes. I had about 600 followers. And I remember I was at CES. It would have been CES of 2020. God, isn't it weird how it's like you can't keep track of time.
Yeah.
Right. It just,
oh my gosh. It feels like, when was that? And the social media manager for the New York Stock Exchange, Matthew Kobach, tweeted out that I was someone to follow. And I remember I had taken a plane leaving Vegas out of CES, and when I landed, I had like 3,000 followers. And then all of a sudden, I felt some pressure. Like, okay, he said I was someone to follow. I need to, live up to this. And it's been really valuable for me to learn what it takes to build a following. I think that has helped me counsel my colleagues at Deere. I will also tell you, it is a challenge and a half on a daily basis to be the spokesperson for the company and to find balance where I can be myself, but not tip my hat one way or the other on, political beliefs, personal opinions. So what I've really done, and you've seen it from my feed, is one of the things I feel very passionately about is that we are not honest enough with young people about how challenging it is, no matter how old you are or how long you've been in an industry. There's this, I feel like, this misperception that people that are further along in their career suddenly have this innate wisdom and have everything figured out and know all the answers. And I've kind of made it my mission to remind people that none of us have it figured out. We're all trying to figure it out on a daily basis, and half the time we're guessing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no map. You have to like trust your gut and go. And so I found out that resonated with people, and so I've just kind of stuck with that.
That's awesome.
It's fun to put it into perspective. We have had quite a few of our guests start podcasts of their own and immediately reflect on us as being the expert. And just like you said, we are far, far from it. We still have audio and visual technical difficulties every time we set up.
Yeah.
There's always a different problem.
One, we're always adding and trying to be better. And
right.
So we have a new cord going here and a new camera going there. But
yeah, the best thing that I think of is it's a temperament to not let that allow yourself to shut down, to embrace that as a challenge, and let's overcome it. Let's just fix it.
Yeah,
move on.
For sure.
So how long do you think think about a tweet before you put it out on your personal side? Just it's a question there because
I don't. You know what? I don't at all. I'm not one of those people that has like drafts all like set up.
You just
wow.
I'll have moments where I'll think, I'm going to put this out there.
I'm serious. Like everyone is like a mini TED Talk.
Oh my gosh.
Because that was my same thought was I don't have drafts either, but the quality that I put out is nothing compared to the thoughts that you release.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've been in communications my whole life. Don't you guys think, Twitter is like the ultimate challenge, and it's like a puzzle for me. You need to say something in that 200 characters or less that will mean something, that will resonate, right?
Yep.
And so it's almost like a puzzle for me to, figure out to take my thought and to make it concise and yet, resonate with your audience.
And on top of that, you have the algorithms that you have to appease.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what? I'll tell you what, a huge lesson for me too is that individual reach is exponentially greater than a brand channel can reach.
Yeah.
Right. So all those platforms, and part of what I've been educating my colleagues on is that, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, those are all advertising platforms. They want brands like Deere to pay to reach our audience.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the only way we can reach our audience is if we're entertaining or we're engaging in a two-way, dialogue with fans and customers. So there's a misconception that if you tweet from the Deere handle with its 200,000 followers, you're going to reach a lot more people, but that's not true. The algorithms are really tough on brands.
Yeah, you need to take a book or a page out of Wendy's book and go kind of poke case or something like that. It's always funny when you see those.
I do like seeing when Wendy's takes after Chick-fil-A or Burger King or whatever it is.
It's always funny.
You might see every once in a while we'll put a little bit of, we'll poke fun. But one of the other things and I give my colleague Brian Torrey in advertising for Brian Torrey and Jen Anderson are my colleagues in the Ag and Turf advertising team. And when I joined the social team, I was on a mission. Like, we should be engaging with the farming industry, whether they own red machines or yellow machines or green machines. Why would we not want to engage with all farmers and celebrate all farmers, regardless of what equipment they, operate? Mm-hmm. So, I just feel very strongly about that. We have fun every now and then, but I also don't want,
Yeah, as long as it's not malicious,
Right.
It's always good fun.
Or
we like giving Andy Pastor some hassle about his red combine. But
Yeah.
I was just noticing in the background of where you're sitting, the Andy Clean sticker.
Yeah, that's my favorite tweet.
Yeah.
That's my favorite tweet because I enjoy this too as someone on Twitter. It's like, if you know, like if you can tweet something that your community gets, but no one else does, you've just nailed it. Right. And when we tweeted out this picture of the new X9, it was fun to see. It was almost like an Easter egg, right? Like people realizing, wait a second, what's on that? What is on that combine? And sure enough, it was an Andy Clean sticker.
So was that you that lined all that up with Andy?
That was, we didn't line anything up with him. He had no idea that was coming.
Really? Well, what about all the stickers that started?
The stickers. So that was my colleagues in Ag and Turf, and it was part of, it just kind of grew because we saw, some of the just God, I love when I see all the little kids now,
Yeah,
right,
that's
that
the
are
best.
aspiring to clean their equipment. I mean, what a great, wholesome message,
Yep.
right? To
Yeah.
encourage people to take care of their equipment, to take pride in ownership, and to see, farm families sharing that and looking for Andy Clean's approval. And so I just started chatting with Brian and Jen about, what could we do to really enhance this and to recognize what we're seeing here. So.
And we've had Andy on the podcast, and just a super stellar guy all the way around.
Yeah.
Another one of those that we could talk to for hours and hours. He actually sent us some stickers. We're raising money for the Travis Burkhart Foundation. So a couple of the auction items are the John Deere themed stickers, and then the black and gray themed stickers if you didn't want to be John Deere, to help raise money. So even genuine to the point to where he sent some of those down to try and raise some funds.
Yeah, good
That's
guy.
cool.
You kind of alluded to it that you thought from a young age that you always wanted to do PR for John Deere. Is that
Yeah.
really what little Jen wanted to do when she grew up?
Yeah, I had an aunt who worked for John Deere.
Ah.
And, we always have that. Everyone has that cool aunt or uncle, right? That,
Yeah.
you thought was the coolest. And, her Christmas presents were always the coolest. And she worked at Deere. She was an administrative assistant for Deere. And so I grew up. And of course, I grew up in the Quad Cities, and Deere is a premier employer here in this area. So I went away to school. At first, I was going to be an English teacher. I just loved English and communications. And I discovered PR and got an internship at Edelman Public Relations downtown Chicago. And I remember being on the train going back and forth that commute, dreaming of someday heading up PR for John Deere.
That's crazy. I mean, I felt like at a fairly young age, I knew I wanted to be in finance and be in banking, but to have the company picked out, no, wasn't even close.
Yeah. Well, and then one of my first jobs out of college, I was the marketing manager for the Illinois Soybean Association and Checkoff Board. And I don't come from a farm family. I lived in a very, very rural community, but I was not raised on a farm. But it's just like my life just kind of ended up on that trajectory. And I loved working with farmers and loved the work at the Soybean Association and Checkoff Board. Got a job at United Way of the Quad Cities, and got very connected with a lot of folks at Deere. Loved the mission of United Way, so I was there for 8 or 9 years, but then landed here at Deere.
Sounds like the dream story.
Yeah.
It was. And my first job at Deere I was the Gold Key manager.
Oh, really?
At Harvester Works. So my very first job at Deere got to be hosting customers
When
who
did you
wanted
work
to
there?
see and start. So 12 years ago
Okay.
is when I started.
I think about 20 years ago, I went through the Gold Key tour with my dad and grandpa.
Yeah, that was a great introduction too, right?
Yeah.
I got to meet visitors from all over the world.
Yep. Something that was, instilled in me at a young age. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see.
I think for me too, it helped. I was at Harvester Works for almost 7 or 8 years, but boy, you get to see firsthand what our brand means to people when you see families come in to experience that Gold Key tour. So I think that has helped in doing social and PR, because I know how much this brand is connected to so many families.
We have to appease Dull Distributing. They gave us some nice beer to try here. So real quick, we're trying their what is it?
Goose Island.
Goose Island, and we're trying their lemon shandy. We've tried Goose Island before.
Yes, but they brought a couple extra Goose Islands this time, and I think the main one was to kick off the warmer weather. So we'll pause here real quick and give what is it again? It's not summer.
It's lemonade
shandy. All right, we're going to taste this real quick, Jen.
I thought maybe you chose it because it was yellow.
Well,
actually,
almost. It is almost Deere colors.
Who'd have thought? It's given to us. We had no hand in doing this, but
That's actually pretty good.
it's got more of a bite to it than I'm used to in a lemonade.
Dave would like this one.
He would have. Poor guy.
Poor guy just can't say no to working.
No, that's a good beer. Thank you, Dole, for putting this together.
So before we get completely out of the PR thing, I know you wanted to go away from it. I actually had a couple questions. I'm truly interested in Deere is a large company. Like how many employees does Deere have?
Almost 70,000.
70,000 employees. So like the town of Ankeny.
For all of you that don't know where Ankeny is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just like a large town. And so I'm interested. So, social media has so many great things, right? Lots of great stuff. It has a lot of bad stuff too. And a lot of people hating and all that stuff. So what's the dynamic of the team like? How many people do you have on a team? Do you have people assigned to like the hate messages, people assigned to the good stuff? Like what's the response? Like, we're not going to respond to that, but that one, we're going after that guy.
We have a team of 5 people.
That's it?
That's it?
I'm trying to think. That's a lot compared to what I had a year ago.
What?
Yeah. We have typically ran with 3 people.
Yikes. I need that many just for Farm for Profit.
Yeah. Now, we have social media in 54 countries, and there's someone in each of those countries it might not be full-time, or it might be part of another job they have. So we do have some colleagues globally. But for North America, we have 2 community managers. We have a social media manager, and we have like a social media specialist who does all the monitoring. So we have someone 40 hours per week. Their job is to come in and they're monitoring all the channels. They're referring customer support questions to the right people. They're alerting us if there's any issues. But for the most part, yeah, it's just a small number of us.
I would have thought that would have been a lot larger deal. That's amazing. Really.
Yeah.
So that was, I guess, I put 2 questions into that one.
Now we do have we have a customer support team that's part of our, if you were to call the customer support number for Deere, we have a few people that are assigned to social. So like on nights and weekends and holidays, they answer customer support questions.
So tonight when
more technical.
So tonight when I put a tweet out to John Deere, someone's going to see it. It's not going to be you.
So I'm on Twitter. I mean, I check Twitter every night.
All right.
Yeah, if it's a customer support question, they'll take it. They'll know that it's theirs. But I mean, if you're going to ask, like, how do I fix this belt that just broke on my tractor? I'm not the one that'll answer that.
Right. Well, I won't test them.
Is there like a chart that says, all right, if they said this, go to this. If they said this, go to that. And if they're bashing this, we're going to... Or is it all just experience?
There, we do generally speaking, you do learn. You learn who to avoid. You learn who not to respond to. We have a software tool that all of us on the back end have visibility to. And so we don't want one of our customer support people to look stupid if they respond to a troll
right.
that we know isn't right. So we try to prevent that from happening. And quite honestly, we just don't respond to people that are mean or abusive or looking to get a rise out of us.
Wouldn't it be fun to see that list?
It would be kind of fun. It would be kind of fun to see that list. But I agree with your tactic, because if you don't give them validation, that's what they're looking for. Just let it fizzle out.
Yeah, well, and you think about it, if someone comments, and a lot of times there's those bots, right? They'll come after us, and they'll start attacking us on any number of issues. And typically, most people don't see those comments. If it's someone that's got someone that started their account last week and they've got 2 followers, if Deere responds, we're going to give that oxygen.
Right.
We're going to give that validity.
Yeah.
And and a lot of our colleagues, right? It's hard for our colleagues to see what people say about our company, and they'll say, "Oh, you need to respond, or you need to correct them," or and quite frankly, that's the last thing we want to do.
Yeah, that's where your brand speaks for you.
Yep.
But,
yeah.
I mean, I can echo that
true.
just in having a podcast, and we're small potatoes, but we get a few haters or trolls or whatever, and at first it was fun to go back at them, but it doesn't get you anywhere. You're better off just living in their head rent free and not responding.
Well, and you guys know this from being on social, and this is how I always describe it, because it is hard for people that love our brand and our company. And it is hard for even our team sometimes to be on the receiving end of it, especially if there's an issue that someone takes, like a group takes an offense to. It's like 5% on the right and 5% on the left have the loudest voices on social, right?
Yep.
And man, it's just like the 90% of the people in the middle just want to have conversations and engage with one another. So you almost have to train yourself over time to ignore those voices on either end of the spectrum that are just out to hate.
Right. All right. Am I allowed to step out of the PR role, Corey?
Yep, let's go.
All right. So you're celebrating a 10-year anniversary.
I am.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Could you share a little bit with our audience about what that 10-year anniversary is?
Sure. So just over 10 years ago, about 10 and a half years ago, I started having severe migraines. I've had headaches my whole life, but I started having migraines that were off the charts. And I went and saw my doctor. They had some MRIs done. And she called me up to her office. I sat, they sit me in a waiting room for her. Everybody leaves. I'm watching like all the lights go off, and my doctor comes in, and she's got this huge manual in her hands, and she sets it down on the table in front of me and flips it open to a picture of a brain and says, I know since I've made you wait so long, you probably already know what I'm about to tell you. You have a brain tumor. And it was just like they say, like it was an out of body experience. Like she kept talking, she was talking. And I remember her saying, would you like me to prescribe you some Valium? A lot of people that get a diagnosis like this, like to have that. And I remember thinking, God, this is serious. Like, how many times do you get offered Valium with a diagnosis? What we ended up finding after 6 months of visiting different doctors and specialists is I had something that's called a vagal schwannoma, which is a rare brain tumor that wraps itself around your vagus nerve.
Say that again. A vagal schwannoma?
Vagal schwannoma. Vagal schwannoma. And the vagus nerve, among other things, controls your vocal cords. And because it controls your vocal cords, it also controls your ability to eat and swallow without choking.
So
your vocal cords open and close over your esophagus so that you don't choke. Yeah, like to protect your lungs so that you don't choke, right, when you're eating or drinking. And so the diagnosis I was given is that this tumor had wrapped itself around that nerve. And I had a couple options. I could wait and see. And that was not a great option because if it were to continue to grow, it could have been irreversible. Mm-hmm. Or I could get surgery to have it removed. And that wasn't the best option because even surgery could have damaged that nerve. They gave me a 90% chance I would need a feeding tube.
90%
chance. But I'll be honest, you guys, after hearing you have a brain tumor, I had no experience prior to that to know that hearing like that a brain tumor could be benign. Yeah. I just took brain tumor as a death sentence.
Yep. Yeah. That's it.
Right. And how much time do I have? Right. And so hearing that I might need a feeding tube, I still thought, my gosh, I'm still going to be here.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm still going to be here. So I can do this. I remember them asking me, are you in a career that requires you to communicate a lot?
Well, in communications, but
yeah. And this is when I was at Harvester Works with the Gold Key Tours. When I went through this, and as it turns out, certainly I'm speaking to you now, and gosh, it's emotional for me to even be able to do interviews like this at this time. Right? Sometimes you kind of forget, but I ended up getting surgery at Mayo. And I woke up with the ability to speak in a semi-whisper, voice of some kind. And so I knew immediately that I had a chance, right? That maybe the vocal cords wouldn't be quite as damaged as they had anticipated. Mm-hmm. It took me a few months. I couldn't really eat without choking for a few months, but clearly the nerve bounced back. And
So now if you compare your voice today to maybe a home video of you before, is it similar?
Deeper.
Oh, it is
It's
deeper. Okay.
deeper. Yeah.
Good for radio
Yeah.
and podcast.
Yeah. So did you have to go to like a bunch of speech therapy and everything to get your voice back?
I did a little bit. I did a little bit of physical therapy afterwards. I was consulting with Iowa City and their ear, nose, and throat specialists. But ultimately, it's kind of funny because at the time I was late 30s and I was considered young. At the time, we were also trying to have a baby and I was considered old. So, they just, said that because of how young I was, that nerve just was able to heal itself and bounce back. And
that's great.
Yeah,
We're super glad it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge
awesome.
blessing. Yeah.
So is that something that they're scared could come back or?
I go back. I just went back for a 10-year scan in December and it was completely clear. Part of it is that these are so rare. Mayo is using me as a study.
Oh.
And to also have no residual damage is pretty miraculous.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you probably are in a textbook somewhere.
Yeah. They have me come back for, just to, I think, chart my progress, but I think long term they want to, because these are so rare, they want to make sure it doesn't come back, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's very important that you're still around because you have a special daughter, right?
I do. I have an 18-year-old daughter who was diagnosed with autism when she was 3. And that made this diagnosis, by the way, even more problematic because I knew being able to communicate with her was essential.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if there was anything I was concerned about losing the ability to speak, it was how am I going to communicate effectively with her? Because parents, right, just with, special needs kids, we innately know our kids. We all do, right? But with a special needs child, you understand better than anybody how to connect and how to communicate effectively. So it was a big deal. And I remember my colleagues at Deere and, I always wanted to work at Deere, but I will tell you guys, this company and just how much I love the people here and how absolutely amazing they were through that experience. I will be here the rest of my life. And they all went in together. A bunch of people that I didn't even know went together and bought me an iPad so that I could, before I went into surgery, record books to read to my daughter. I remember I recorded things like get your shoes, brush your teeth, I love you. Those things that I might not be able to say afterwards, I put on an iPad so that I was ready to communicate with her in the event I couldn't speak anymore.
I can't describe the feeling that just hit my body
chills
right now.
Yeah.
But to know that just any person to think through and a group of people to support an individual as such, and then what was playing through my mind, and I know I didn't hear everything you just said, which I'm glad this is on recording, is how you would have felt when you made those recordings.
Oh, yeah. I get goosebumps talking about it. And I get emotional. Yeah. I remember too, because this was a choice. If there was anything through that experience, and I don't know if you've had serious medical conditions, but you think doctors will tell you what to do. I was visiting with the top specialists at Mayo. I thought Mayo would say, here's your course of action. Here's, what we recommend. Now go forth and make that happen. Right. And they don't. It was completely up to me. I could wait and see, or I could get the surgery. So that day going in, and it was March 10th, 10 years ago, knowing I was choosing this, and my mom and dad were there, my husband, my sister and brother were there, knowing everything I said to them might be the last time.
Mm-hmm.
And then being put on that gurney to go back to prep for surgery. One of my most vivid memories was being on that gurney and the doors opened and knowing that if I just put my hand out, I could stop. Like I could stop.
Yeah.
And I could say, never mind. Never mind. I don't want to do this. Yeah, it was pretty daunting.
I'm struggling to put it into perspective because of the magnitude that had as a potential impact on your life. I mean, everybody on the podcast land knows that I just had a couple of hernias fixed this winter.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about a 90% rate that it's not going to go the right way, that's one of those procedures that is 99.8% effective and no side, but still I was scared going, being put under and not knowing if I'm going to wake up again.
We have a family tradition now. It's kind of funny you say that because I also knew I might not be able to eat again. And so my whole family, we held a Jen's favorite foods dinner before I went up to Mayo, and it was like all my favorite foods. And we had the whole family come over, and it was like my favorite stuff. I love Chili's enchilada soup, and it was sushi, and it was just this mix of all my favorite foods. And so our whole family now, we have a tradition that anyone going into surgery gets to have their favorite meal before they go into surgery. So
modern
that's
day Last Supper with a happy ending.
Yeah. So what's for dessert? What's for Jen's favorite dessert?
I don't remember if I had a dessert. You know what? My mom's M&M cookies. That's what I had.
Oh, that sounds
good. That's what
right?
it was. Yeah, she makes amazing cookies.
That's awesome.
So that's another storyline that's fun to follow is your daughter and what she's doing as you said 19, 18, or is she 18 or 19?
She's 18.
18. What she's doing as an 18-year-old woman is remarkable. I mean, that alone is a fascinating story to follow.
That surgery I had too, though, launched a whole other chapter of my life, which is I got out of that surgery and I was on boards all over the Quad Cities. I was on chamber boards and charity boards, and, I was lending, PR and communications expertise to a lot of volunteer organizations that I care about. But when I was recovering from that surgery, I it gives you pause, right? Like, where am I putting my time?
Mm-hmm. And
what's most important to me? Well, of course, my daughter, and being a better and stronger advocate for autism is really what I decided I was going to put my time and energy into outside of work. And so my husband and I and my ex-husband, we started a nonprofit called Royal Ball Run for Autism. And part of that was to celebrate her. She was absolutely obsessed with all things princes and princesses at the time. And so we started it as a race to raise awareness with runners about autism. It has since grown into a huge community of autism families. We've given back over $250,000 to autism programs. And it has been really instrumental in her development, which was not intentional. I never started it intending for her to get career skills, independent living skills. But she now wants to be a party planner.
Really?
And part of that has been her involvement with Royal Ball. She just finished 2 different seasons working for Party City. And on March 24th, here in a couple of weeks, she will be interviewing for a position, or I guess a slot, with the University of Iowa and their REACH program, which is a special college program for kids with intellectual disabilities.
Wow, that's fantastic.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Normally can't say much good about Iowa, but I can here.
It's a phenomenal program.
We've got a couple of Cyclone. I shouldn't say a couple. This whole podcast host is a Cyclone fan.
but Iowa does fantastic.
But we do
work
know. I was going to say.
The University of Iowa REACH program is worth rooting for. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Most certainly.
Yeah.
I kind of alluded to it in our introduction, but we've put together we're calling it the Ag Swag Auction. It's a fundraiser for the Travis Burkhart Foundation. And he suffered a traumatic brain injury. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting how these parallels are crossing as we have this interview. But the amount of support in the ag community, both on Ag Twitter and on Farm Talk, TikTok, the farm side of TikTok.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. I mean, I was looking forward to when we put this together to raise $1,000, and as we're recording this now, we're well over 10,000.
Yeah. And,
Wow.
And just getting started, it seems.
Yeah, because it doesn't close till the end of the month, and we
March
know how
26th.
You know how those online auctions
Yeah.
work. A lot of the bidding happens in the final days.
Yeah. Well, you guys saw what happened when we profiled Liam, the young boy who had terminal brain tumor.
Yep.
My gosh, the amount of stuff
Yeah.
that got shipped to him, and
Yeah.
it was just absolutely incredible. The response, we were just talking a little bit ago about the trolls on social. There are an incredible number of people that are so generous
Yeah.
and giving and thoughtful in social circles that it's pretty incredible.
And now we have the ability to reach out to someone in California or Virginia or where, I mean,
Because you see
Australia.
that. You've historically seen that in the farming communities. If somebody has an injury or an illness in a family, the community usually comes together and gets that crop planted, helps harvest.
Yeah.
You see that locally, but this is just a way for, the world, the nation outside of agriculture to see the true generosity that is amongst those that you'd consider farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't really steer the path of our networks colliding and expanding because we'd had a lot of our listener base from the ag Twitter side.
Yeah.
And towards the end of 2020 really started to grow at a significant rate from TikTok. What is yours and John Deere's vision of TikTok?
Yeah. So I've tweeted this on my personal handle before, but if you look up the hashtag John Deere on TikTok, there's over 1 billion with a B views of videos just with the hashtag John Deere. That's not taking John Deere Green, JD, John Deere Tractor, all the other forms. It's just might be up to 1.2 billion at this point. And we stepped back and took a look at that and thought, okay, number one, there's already a really robust community on TikTok that is celebrating our brand and certainly not always in the ways we would endorse, but there is already a number of folks celebrating our brand and the ag industry as a whole. We want to be sure that when we launch our content on that channel, it means something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just to be part of it, but that we are adding value in some way, or we are differentiating our brand in a fun and interesting way that has sustainability. Because you guys know, if you're not creating content frequently for TikTok, you're behind, right? Yeah. And so we wanted to make sure that TikTok didn't just become, oh, we're going to be at Farm Progress Show, let's do some TikToks. Oh, we're going to be at FFA, let's do. Yeah. We want. I keep telling my team, no pressure, but I'm like, when we launch Deere's TikTok channel, I want it to be a story in Adweek magazine. I want people in the industry to say, wow, look at what John, I want to surprise people. I don't want it to be like, oh, this is, our fans are going to, if we just did tractors every day,
sure,
we would build an audience. But I'm really challenging our team to make sure it exceeds expectations when we do.
Shania Twain just started her TikTok, and within the first post had 650 thousand followers.
Well, and also TikTok's harder for brands. We can't use any of the licensed music.
Oh.
We have to be careful what we share. It's, the data itself is managed by China.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just, there's a little bit there. We're a little bit constrained, perhaps more than an individual could be. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, I never thought about that either.
Yeah, we can't even share. And you guys saw people are getting taken down just for sharing TikTok videos on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because of licensed music.
I need to go back.
So we now can't even engage with farmer TikToks on Twitter, right? Like we have to be careful.
Maybe it is better that you have like the guys like Tillage Man Sam and stuff out there. That's because he's got some cool stuff. Like look at me moving this 2,000-pound gang of discs with my finger.
With your finger.
Yep. Yeah, with hydraulic assist, That's pretty cool.
That's how we found him and to get him on as a guest. So it certainly has and carries volume. I just was curious because
ask.
It's a wild frontier. We're still trying to figure it out. You mentioned.
Well, and I just told you how small my team is. That's the
Yeah.
other challenge. TikTok is completely native. We can't monitor that through a software tool.
Right.
And we have processes in place to ensure that before something's posted, there's been some approvals.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you've seen other brands that haven't had that in place.
If you want to get into algorithms, there
That was another puzzle.
That's even way worse than Twitter or anything else.
We wouldn't even be able to follow
Oh my gosh.
the way we can the timelines in Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, right?
Yeah, that's
That's interesting.
Yeah, you got to be careful because what was it was Women's Day. I can't remember what that was.
Yeah.
And
International Women's Day and Burger King.
made a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did not
that
see
didn't
that.
translate so well.
Women are I can't
Women
remember.
belong in the
belong
kitchen
in the kitchen.
Oh.
was their tweet.
Oh.
And
That's a yikes tweet any day. What the hell?
The intent, and by the way, I keep asking my team, was it really a mistake? Because I now know that only 20% of professional chefs are women. And the whole point of that Burger King campaign, which is accompanied by a full page ad and others, I would argue the tweet was ill-conceived, but the whole idea was to promote a new scholarship they have to get women engaged in culinary school to become chefs. But that tweet did not go well and was a bad idea.
Yikes.
Well, we know that you're a little bit constrained for time, but I want to ask you a couple more questions if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I consider you, and I think a lot would consider you, a influencer on social media, someone that they look to get information from, or grab value out of what is posted. What are some accounts or some connections that you consider influencers to you?
I said living legend.
You know what I love about my personal feed is that it is a mix of marketing Twitter, which is primarily East and West Coast marketing professionals, and ag Twitter. And so when you think about my feed is so inclusive of such a broad range of opinions and perspectives that sometimes are completely in contrast.
Right.
Gosh, I have a lot of affinity, and I mention his name a lot, for Matthew Kobach, because he really did help me cultivate my own voice and gave me the courage to kind of step out a bit when it came to my social media feed. And he was the head of social for the New York Stock Exchange, and now he's at a startup company called Fast. So I think he's been a powerful influence for me in how I built my own social media presence. I'm not saying this just because of your audience, but I absolutely love following anyone in ag Twitter. I don't know that I could even put my name on any one. I have just so appreciated the opportunity to get to know people from behind the John Deere, to get out from behind the John Deere handle. I have a lot of folks that DM me a lot. I get
guilty.
Yeah, I get DMs, and a lot of times, and I've made this point in my personal feed, don't ever assume that PR and social knows what's happening. I've had DMs on a Saturday night on a holiday weekend from people like, hey, Jen, I don't know if you know this, but John Deere's being mentioned. It's like 10 o'clock at night on Labor Day weekend. And I find out there's a crisis brewing online, right? And so I have people sending me TikToks, that, hey, I think, you might want to see this. This is really cool. I have people that disagree with things about Deere and they want me to know about it. I think all of that's been really incredible. It's been valuable for me. And also, by the way, encouraging that people trust me.
Oh, yeah.
That's big.
Right. That people trust me. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit worried coming on this podcast.
A lot of people are.
Well, because there's something about, knowing who the social media person is behind the handle, right?
Right.
And I want people to see the Deere brand as the Deere brand and not Jen Hartmann. Sometimes a little bit uncomfortable when people tag both me and the Deere handle.
I could see that.
Because it's not always me, and I'm not solely behind the content that's being played across there. And so, yeah, I just always want to kind of be careful that I never want to be that person that's in my personal feed. I very rarely retweet Deere. Very rarely.
Yeah.
That's something that I shouldn't say grown, but that's a word I'm going to use is since I am running the Farm for Profit account is I used to, Farm for Profit tweeted, I'd go over my personal account, hit like and retweet.
Yeah.
And I don't do that anymore. I mean, unless it's something that I really found unique or really think that needs to get put out. Otherwise, no, I try to keep those separate. I'll still promote guests. I'll still,
I mean, you're sugarcoating it a little bit because you would have conversations with yourself.
Some of that's fun, though.
5 different burner accounts. Just all reply.
Just back and forth. Just to drum up some traction there.
I'm trying to think if the tweet that you sent out about the mullet of saddle tanks going to be on the Mullet of Ag podcast if you tagged her and John Deere or if you just...
I think he did. And I did not like it until Quentin said something like, I'm looking for it. Oh, this will be good.
See,
I liked someone.
Yeah.
Someone said
Quentin
something
or Kale
about it.
or someone. Yeah, someone that wasn't on the blacklist had to come in and say something positive before she could interact.
That's pretty good. But I do. On a very, very small scale, I totally get exactly what you're saying. The other question that I wanted to ask was, I know that you probably get to different events and have gotten to meet a lot of people through your position.
Yeah.
Who is the coolest person?
Do you know what? Here's the thing. Like I just told you, I didn't build my social presence until the pandemic hit. Until right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for the first farm show.
Yeah.
Because I can't wait to meet people. I have not had the opportunity to meet anyone in person.
Honestly, didn't even think about that. That's a really dumb question now that I put into perspective.
I've not, and we haven't, because I didn't have my personal handle, a lot of people didn't know me, right? Like they didn't make the connection to the Deere handle. So it's only been within this past 12 months that I've started engaging with people and got to know people one-on-one.
That's a good point.
So what's it going to be? Farm Progress Show?
The Farm for Profit conference?
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know, but I can't wait. I can't wait. It's like I just want to have like a big, I would love to just have everyone from Ag Twitter get together and wouldn't that be fun?
I think we should do it.
We can put all your favorite foods together for that too.
And I always take a clip out of each podcast and put it ahead of our intro music, and I'm pretty sure I just found that clip. It's going to be me saying, that was a really dumb question, and Jen saying, yeah.
Yeah, that was dumb.
I really do appreciate, and I say every time I do this, but we really appreciate you taking the time to jump on our podcast. Like I said, have really looked up to your Twitter account for a long time, was floored when you responded to DMs. And I know the first DM I sent wasn't even about the podcast. It was about connecting to somebody else locally. So really appreciate your willingness to help, the way that you engage in Ag Twitter. It was fun to learn that you didn't grow up in a farm household or a farming family. But yet chose to take your talents and your story to an agricultural-related company. I just find that truly astounding.
Yeah, that's amazing. So
I so appreciate having you guys just being here, being asked. I know you hear probably from a lot of your guests, but sometimes you think like, well, how could my story possibly be interesting? So thank you.
Everybody's story is interesting, and that's what we get to tell people is it doesn't matter who you are, how famous you think you are, or what your social media following is. Everybody has a story that's worth hearing.
Yep.
And it's fun to have a medium that we can share those on.
I learned that from Rob Sharkey, because he had me on his XM show a couple years back, and I was like, why do you want to interview me? There's nothing interesting about me. He's like, you just leave that to me. That's my job. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So the last question that we ask all of our guests is, since we are the Farm for Profit podcast, even though this is a Farm for Fun show, we try to share with our audience a collective list of what the most successful people are doing, or what a common trait they all have. So we're going to spring that one on you. Out of the most successful people that you've met, what do you feel that they all have in common, whether it's an action, a trait, or something else?
Self-awareness, being aware of, maybe I'll take this back. Because part of being self-aware is, I just said this to someone who works for me today, is that being a strong communicator does not mean you need to be in communications. The best leaders are incredible communicators. And part of that is being self-aware, being able to read the room, understanding where you fit in the conversation, and what people need to hear or what they're looking to hear, right?
Yep.
And that comes from self-awareness.
I knew we'd get a good answer.
I kind of feel like that sometimes too. Like I'm trying to be a chameleon almost. Like you can go to any group of people and blend in and know what to say, when to say it.
It is hard to define self-awareness, isn't it? But
Yeah.
you know it when someone doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Because they usually say something that's just completely off the mark.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like where did that come from? Yep.
Right.
Yep. So, well, you got anything else for us? Otherwise, we probably need to let you get going. Anything you want to let all your followers know?
Nothing. Just
Nothing.
I just, I mentioned that being able to get on the Deere Twitter handle at night and the weekends. I just cannot tell you how much gratitude I have for the community we've built there and the fun engagement we've had with people, and honestly, just the incredible support. Deere is a big company. We get beat up a lot.
Yeah.
And it has been so fulfilling to know that community there is friendly and accepting, and they're not blaming the people on the other side of the
Yep.
of the Twitter handle for perhaps some issues they might have with our company at large. But it has been the favorite part of my job, in the career I've had, the absolute highlight of my career.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you after getting to know you and a little bit of the background of Deere and how much they put into having people like you, I want to go buy a John Deere tractor like right now.
Yes.
Right now.
Yep. Truly, though, we thank you for your time. We appreciate you setting aside the time for the conversation and being completely open with us and passing that message on to our listeners. We can't share more thanks than what we can verbally, and that's never going to go far enough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And my DMs are open, and I do respond. If
Slide
you
on in.
So for those listeners that don't know your Twitter handle, could you share that with them?
At Jen Allison, JenAlYson.
I'm sure everybody follows you already, but in case that's how you find Jen, thank you again. And listeners, remember
Thank
to
you.
like, rate, review, and share. And for the short time being, venture out to the Farm for Profit website. We've got the links out there for the BW Fusion offer, and most importantly, the Travis Burkhart Foundation charity auction.
Yep.
That's going to close out here pretty quick, so wander on over.
IowaAuctions.com is
Yep.
the easiest way to get there.
Yep, either the link on the website or IowaAuctions.com. It closes March 26th. Get out there, bid early, bid often.
Yep.
What do you think, Corey?
I say crack a Goose Island beer, mix a drink. You deserve it.
Intro music recorded by Tyler Rickton and the High Bank Boys. Commentary added by Elena Montemagni. And credit to bensound.com for music.